571257 to save all COD charges and pay only $12.98 for records or cassettes or $16.98 for compact disc, plus $3 shipping. Use your credit card or send check or money order to Roger Whittaker, P.O. Box 8250, Atlanta, Georgia. Remember, to save all COD charges, send check or money order or use your credit card.
This is CNN.
An angry outburst in Libya. Outrage over United Nations sanctions explodes into violence against some embassies in Tripoli.
Shakeups in Russia, a political shock involving the man behind Russia's economic shock therapy.
And shooting down accusations involving Patriot missiles in Israel, the Bush administration, and the sensitive issue of Israeli transfers of U.S. arms technology. Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. I'm Frank Sesno in Washington.
And at the CNN Center in Atlanta, I'm Donna Kelley. Hello. A violent backlash in Libya sparked by a United Nations Security Council vote to impose sanctions against that country. Angry mobs of protesters went on a rampage in Tripoli today against the embassies of some countries that voted for the sanctions. Reports say rioters left the Venezuelan embassy in ruins and shattered windows at the Russian embassy. Outraged demonstrators also protested outside the French and Belgian embassies. The demonstrators demanded the ouster of diplomats whose countries backed sanctions against Libya. The UN Security Council voted for the sanctions Tuesday when Libya refused to turn over suspected terrorists. Libya's ambassador to the United Nations has issued an apology to UN Secretary General Boutros Ghali and says his country is trying to safeguard the security of the embassies.
The United Nations is expected to condemn the violence in Tripoli. Security Council members convened an emergency session to draft a statement demanding that the Libyan government put a stop to the attacks. U.S. Ambassador Thomas Pickering says his Libyan counterpart admitted responsibility to UN members, but gave a, quote, unacceptable explanation. It's not clear when the Council will act on its statement. The Bush administration today cleared Israel of passing on Patriot missile technology to China. But potentially more damaging is a report suggesting that Israel has been illegally transferring other weapons technology to other third countries for the past 9 years, and that the U.S. State Department knew it but looked the other way. A routine U.S. audit uncovered what is called systematic technology transfers by Israel. The audit was designed to examine the State Department's internal licensing methods.
Well, I would argue that this is a management tool that is being used, that we are being responsible. We are doing our job to enforce the laws and the arrangements that are made. We have acknowledged in this report, as Saul says, no one disagrees that there were some problems. We're addressing those problems.
Another briefing on the audit is underway at this hour, and we'll have details when they're available. It was a separate investigating team that went to Israel to look into the Patriot missile charges. They concluded that there were no illegal transfers, and as far as the State Department is concerned, the matter is closed. But there's been no apology from Washington, as some Israeli officials had wanted.
Well, the man who crafted Russia's economic reforms is out of a job. Russian President Boris Yeltsin today removed Finance Minister Yegor Gaidar in what officials describe as a structural reshuffle. Mr. Yeltsin offered no explanation for the change. The move comes days before a key parliamentary session that's expected to focus on public anger over the soaring prices. Gaidar was the man who put Russia on the painful road to reform by ending state price controls. Shares rose on the Paris Stock Exchange after the country's first female prime minister resigned today. Idée Cresson had few fans. Her historically short tenure lasted less than a year. Her departure leaves Cresson's successor with much fence mending to do for the Socialist Party. CNN's Christiane Amanpour reports.
Edith Cresson was appointed to breathe new life into the Socialist Party. Now she has been sacrificed to save its faltering fortunes. President Francois Mitterrand was under intense pressure to do something to stop the hemorrhaging after the Socialists' disastrous showing in recent regional elections. They won just 18% of the vote, the lowest in more than 20 years. Afterwards, 68% of the people polled called for Cresson's head. When the guillotine finally fell, you could hear the grim satisfaction in Paris patisseries and in the cafes.
I didn't like her at all, and I'm glad she's gone.
I'm happy she's gone because she was nothing special. She was completely incompetent.
Cresson, France's first woman premier, was in office just 10 months, long enough to become the most unpopular prime minister ever. Ridiculed for a series of public gaffes, she called Japanese workers ants and English men homosexuals. Her successor, Finance Minister Pierre Bérégovoy, is the darling of the business community. His austere economic policies have slashed France's inflation rate to 3%. But ironically, those very policies are blamed for failing to cure this country's most serious problem, the record-high 10% unemployment rate. But analysts say the socialist woes start with the man at the top, President Mitterrand.
He's suffering of what we call very simply usure in French, usure du pouvoir. He is in power for too long time. France is the only democracy where the chief stays so long.
A presidential term here lasts 7 years. After 11 years in power, Mitterrand still has 3 to go. And even now, the opposition is calling on him to hold early general elections and to step down. They say that France needs a new, rejuvenated policy to cure its domestic malaise and to redefine the country's international agenda now that the political landscape has shifted so radically. Although a government shake-up might quiet the immediate political storm, the recent elections signal the need for much more than just a new facade, as France tries to chart its course through both the new Europe and the new world order. Christiana Manpour, CNN, Paris.
And when we come back, in New York, a major mob boss found guilty as charged. We'll have the story.
There's a place on Florida's southwest coast that's so natural. I call it Florida's Florida. Come on down and see for yourself, because it's going to be another great day on Lee Island Coast. There's exotic wildlife, terrific golf and tennis, exciting water sports, unbeatable fishing, and fascinating historical attractions. Call this number to find out more about Florida's Florida. Hey, you'll see why I say the fun comes naturally on Lee Island Coast.
Steve Jones joined CompuServe because a friend recommended it. He bought his digital deck for the same reason. And it was well reviewed by an expert on the electronics forum. So when Steve added surround sound, he got good advice and a great price right online. With CompuServe, there was always more. Like conferencing cross-country with someone whose system seemed a lot like his. They compared notes. Then Steve checked out airfares and flight schedules. There's only one way to judge an audio system. CompuServe. For more information, call 1-800-554-4080. Start with the basics, news, travel, and encyclopedia, and more for just $7.95 a month. Then go beyond for free software and help with hardware and software problems. You'll get more out of your computer and more out of life. CompuServe, the information service you won't outgrow.
Nighttime backache? Try Momentum Muscular Backache Formula. Momentum has a maximum strain pain reliever to help relieve your backache so you can sleep.
My back feels great, and I slept like a log.
Momentum Muscular Backache Formula.
Headline News, I'm Chuck Roberts.
When you need news from around the world, turn to CNN Headline News at the top and bottom of every hour for complete updates. CNN Headline News. Anytime, all the time.
After deliberating for a day and a half, a jury this afternoon reached a guilty verdict against mob boss John Gotti. Gotti was convicted across the board. He was found guilty of murder, racketeering, gambling, loan sharking, and obstruction of justice. Gotti's co-defendant, Frank Le Castillo, was also found guilty of murder and racketeering, and Gotti has gone to trial a total of 4 times in the past 6 years. He was acquitted in the first 3 trials. That earned Gotti the nickname Teflon Don, but this time the charges stuck. Gotti's attorneys say the jurors made a mistake and they plan to appeal.
What difference does it make to us whether the jury is out 1 hour or 1 week or 1 month if the verdict is a bad one? And we feel that this verdict was a bad one, Charles, and that it, unfortunately, in our opinion, and I think I say this on behalf of the three of us, that the jury did not give adequate consideration to the defense arguments, did not give, more than that, adequate consideration to the evidence and to the applicable law.
Are you planning to appeal this? What grounds are you planning to appeal this on?
The judge didn't allow you to put on a proper case?
There are many grounds that we plan to appeal, and without cataloging them, I can tell you this, that we are all confident, and as John Mitchell said, that when it became clear to us that if the jury was coming in this quick, it was probably not good news. But John told us all, and Frank told us all, was not, they were consoling us, as opposed to feeling sorry for themselves, saying that this fight will continue and eventually we'll win it.
In addition to what you just heard, CNN brought you live coverage earlier of the defense team's comments, and when the prosecutors become available, we'll bring those to you as well.
Well, today's verdict capped an intense 6-year government effort to nail John Gotti. CNN's Charles Feldman takes a look at the high-profile, high-stakes trial.
Some have called it the mob trial of all mob trials. The U.S. government versus John Gotti, reputed godfather of the nation's largest and most powerful mafia family, the Gambinos. It came complete with one of the most dramatic courtroom confrontations in memory, the testimony of Salvatore Sammy the Bull Gravano, who turned against his former friend and alleged mob boss by becoming a government witness. The key charge against Gotti: he was the mastermind of the 1985 rubout of mob boss Paul Castellano. Gotti associates, like these gentlemen who came to court day in and day out, now call Gravano Sammy the Rat. That's because he broke the mafia's strict code of silence, testifying he and Gotti actually sat in a parked car on the night of the Castellano murder, prepared to be backup shooters. While Gravano was on the stand, tension was high. The courthouse had to be evacuated when someone phoned in a bomb threat. 2 other bomb threats followed. And this trial showed that the Gotti clan, if nothing else, is media savvy. A parade of stars, invited by friends of John Gotti, came to pay their respects. Movie star Mickey Rourke, TV star John Amos, recording star Jay Black of the 60s group Jay and the Americans, and Anthony Quinn, who blasted Gravano for being what he called a snitch.
I was raised on the east side myself in Los Angeles, and that was the worst sin one could report.
Although the government called 37 witnesses in the 29 days of trial that followed opening arguments, prosecutors relied heavily on some 8 hours of secretly recorded FBI tapes of Gotti's own voice, a voice the government said that can be heard ordering a murder. As the trial wore on, tempers flared and exploded. The judge threatened to remove Gotti from the courtroom after Gotti blew a sarcastic kiss at the prosecutor. And a lawyer for Gotti co-defendant Frank Locascio was held in contempt of court after he got into a shouting match with the judge. Like all good dramas, this one had a subtext: fear. It drove the judge to keep the jury anonymous and sequestered. It was expressed by some nervous witnesses, and it undoubtedly played a contributing role in the jurors' deliberation. Charles Feldman, CNN, New York.
And just ahead on the International Hour, violence begets violence in the occupied territories of Israel. And later, in the British elections, also Rams try to take off.
Across the world, phones are ringing. Who's calling?
Hello, Mom. It's Jonathan. I'm getting married.
People who are saving money with the AT&T Reach Out World Plan. They're calling friends and family in over 50 countries and areas, talking longer and saving an average of 20%. Even if you spend only $12 a month on international calls, sign up and start saving. Whether you call across the Atlantic, the Pacific, to Canada, or to Mexico.
Did you see the phone bill?
Yeah. Hola, tía Dora.
AT&T makes it easy to save on the calls you already make. You'll even get a 5% discount on AT&T state-to-state calls made from your home. Call 1-800-445-3231 and sign up now. Because with this plan, when a loved one is far away, you can go ahead and call.
I miss her, too. We could call her in Tokyo, but what program on?
And the longer you talk, the more you'll save.